Okay, so the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3 is an amazing phone, but it is not a phone for everyone. Now, let's go ahead and talk about why that is, or why it isn't. Alright, to those of you familiar with the new generation of foldable phones, this is not a phone that is built like many other traditional phones out there, right? So you're not buying it because it's super practical in terms of money or because it's practical in terms of just the form factor. Well, actually, don't get me wrong, this actually turns out to be a lot more practical than a lot of people are willing to admit that, something that you can fold into half the size of what it is when it's originally open, meaning it makes carrying the phone around even easier than you would think. Also, you have additional features like using the main camera for your selfies or the ability to use the flex mode to flex in front of your friends. But with all of that being said, the phone itself is very appealing in terms of not only physical features, but also internal features. And because of that, so many people out there are very tempted to go ahead and buy this phone. Now, if you are a power user, stay away from this phone. Now, granted, the battery on this phone has been improved, but it still offers a somewhat mediocre battery life when compared to the many traditional phones that you have out there. Especially if you're buying this phone as your main phone, it's going to be the only phone that you use. Now, in my personal case, I carry two phones at all time, and even with that, I still find the battery life to, I'm able to survive, the day because I have two phones, but I still find the battery life to be almost done by the end of the day, even though I'm using this in combination with another phone. And in my particular case, it was kind of tough to notice how bad or how good the battery is. Now, one thing that I can tell you for sure is that I was getting a little over I am getting a little over 3.5 SOT, so screen on time, 3.5 hours screen on time. Now, what does that mean? Using it throughout the day, it could mean a range of things, right? When I decided to use this phone as my only phone for the day, I barely made it to late afternoon and I find myself needing to charge this phone. And of course, that does not mean it is the end of the world. Like, if you happen to have a charger with you at all time, you should be golden. You should be able to go ahead and plug that back in as soon as it starts dying. If you are the type of person who works from home, right? So if you work from home, you could definitely, make it throughout the day with this because you may be on different devices, maybe on like a tablet or a computer, so you're not spending as much time using this phone, so the battery would actually see you to the end of the day. Or if you are home, that also means that you are next to a charger and you can easily plug this in if you see the battery dying. Now, during the few days I tried to use this phone as my only phone of the day, I still killed it despite the, adjusting my usage of the phone. So I tried just using regular power usage as I typically do using two phones. It didn't make it. And by the way, if this is your first time visiting, I'm sure you forgot to do two things. Can you do me a favor and hit both the like and the subscribe button there? I truly appreciate that. All right, now, so you would need to actually be a very light user in order to make it to the end of the day with this phone, or if you happen to just adjust the settings, battery settings, changing the refresh rate, all of that good stuff, if you make those changes, then you can actually use it as a regular phone and make it throughout the day. But then again, if you're spending $1,000 on a fancy, good-looking phone like this, you actually want to make sure that you take advantage of all of the flagship and cool and cutting-edge technology features that are loaded in this phone. You want to take advantage of all of that stuff. So as long as you try to do that, you're not going to make it to the end of the day. Now, I do want to emphasize that this is going to be subjective, right? So when I call myself a power user, it's just based off my type of usage. Maybe you consider yourself a power user and we may not use the same apps, the same length of time spent on, either YouTube, Twitter, whatever the case may be. You may see something slightly different than mine. You may consider yourself a power user and finish the day with it. Don't know. But the way I see it, I would not recommend this to a power user who is looking to buy, to replace his current phone and buy this as a new main phone, unless they plan on walking around with a charger so that they can charge it up as the phone dies throughout the day. Next here is if you are the type of person who uses their phone for high productivity tasks, this is not the phone for you, right? Not because of the battery. Well, the battery plays a major role, but the main reason this is not the correct Samsung phone for you is because you don't have Samsung DeX here. It does not support Samsung DeX, which is a shame. Granted, the battery is it is what it is. But if you happen to be home and you have a way to actually have this phone plugged in so that you can work, if you wanted to use the wireless DeX or just plug in, and you don't have that support here, which is a shame. I'm certainly hoping that Samsung brings that back. Well, brings it, not back, brings it on this phone next year, even if they don't improve the battery life. I still think it's a flagship feature that they should have on all of their flagship devices. You can get it on the S line. Why can't you get it on something else that costs $1,000? And the point that I'm trying to make here is that if you are currently using something like a Galaxy S or a Galaxy Note, for example, that's a good example. If you're using let's say a Galaxy Note 10 or Note 10 Plus, and you want to upgrade, to something like this because you like it, it's a cool looking phone, and you want to be able to keep up with your high level of productivity, the way you work on your Galaxy phone. Let's say you don't care much about the S Pen, but you want access to that Samsung DeX so that you can continue to do your stuff and take advantage of that Snapdragon 888 that you have loaded here. Unfortunately, you won't be able to do that because this phone does not support Samsung DeX. So if you are in the market for something that would handle things a little bit like the Note does in terms of productivity, doing multiple things at the same time, using that UI, that custom UI that Samsung makes for Samsung DeX, this is not the phone for you. Now, with those two main points already said, there are a number of additional reasons why you shouldn't get this phone. And with all of that being said, it does not change the fact that this is a fantastic phone. And I'm talking in terms of design, specs, performance, and all that good stuff. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what Samsung will do with this phone next year, right? So you have this guy here loaded with a top-notch chipset, Snapdragon 888. So performance is fantastic. There's a lot of potential of what they can do with this phone, with the level of performance that this phone has to offer, like a support for Samsung DeX. I'm really hoping that they can do that with like a software update like they did with the Samsung Galaxy Tab S6 Lite. They added Samsung DeX support with an update. If they could do that with this, it would be amazing. But anyway, so tons of potential just there. The battery right now, it is a 3,300 milliamp battery. Technically, it's not bad. I personally think that there are some little tweaks that can be made to not only improve battery life, but really also make this phone take advantage of the type of performance that it can offer when it comes down to high productivity stuff like Samsung DeX. Now, if you happen to be in the market for a foldable phone, for a new generation foldable phone, this is a great candidate, despite anything I may have said. So if you're not affected by everything I've said, or if you are affected but you don't care, you just want a new generation foldable phone, this would be a good candidate because it's priced right also, right? $1,000. That's pretty much how much you'll be paying for a traditional, form factor on a phone. This guy here is cutting edge technology. Is actually, I would say, kind of a fashion statement. Is one of those people you want to flex in front of your friends. This is a good phone to do that. You have great cameras here. You have a 12 megapixel wide and 12 megapixel ultra wide. Fantastic image quality. You have the ability to take selfie pictures using these cameras, using the main camera on your phone. That is very, very nice. And you have a bunch of additional features, of course, whether it's the high refresh rate at 120 hertz or the IPX8. Now that it's rated so somewhat water resistant, right? So not all the way, don't just dunk it in water and just leave it there. So you have a lot of stuff improved from the previous generation. I think what Samsung is doing here, especially with this particular phone here, is pioneering the future of foldable phones. And I very much look forward to seeing what they will do with the next generation next year. But anyway, I certainly hope that this was informative. I appreciate you sticking with me till now. Please don't forget, of course, to like, comment, subscribe. I'm going to catch you in the comment section like I always do. I'm also going to catch you in the next video. As always, of course, up until that next video, stay safe out there.